So tell us a little bit about storytelling and kind of what the role that video has increasingly played in Facebook, because I know you're dipping your toe in that water as well.
So for the same reason we talked about before, where everyone has these really powerful phones, those phones can load and play a video really easily. If we were on the stage even 2 years ago, almost no one in this audience would have had a phone that can load a video as quickly as it can today. And that means video is exploding. Video on Facebook is exploding. We are now over 1 billion videos a day. And they happen as an integrated part of your experience. For this audience, that's pretty exciting because that means creativity in marketing can really, really fully express itself. You know, for the marketing community who are here with us today, creativity was always king. And the ability to really connect a brand to the consumers, to connect your product and service was really important. And when digital happened, a lot of people thought creativity wasn't as important. You think about a search format or a little text ad, it's not as emotional, it's not as creative. With video exploding on Facebook, that gives the people who are marketing on Facebook an ability to use that format. And I'll share my two just favorite recent examples. The first one is the World Cup, which you mentioned as well. McDonald's did something called Fry Football. So they would watch the World Cup and they would figure out what the best or most interesting play of the day. And then in our London studio with our Facebook Creative Shop that night, they would recreate that play with the fries. If you haven't seen it, it's really funny.
Yeah.
And then they would run it the next day. And they got a huge brand lift from this because it was relevant and fun. And more recently, I'm a huge ice cream person, unfortunately. And Ben & Jerry's has taken its famous flavors and put them back, but they put them 2 in a box, 2 in a pint with these great fudge things in the middle. So they've done a series of ads with their real employees. Have you seen that with the blowtorch?
Yeah.
So the real employee, for those of you who haven't seen it, she's like, hi, I'm a Ben & Jerry's employee. And she takes a blowtorch and she blows the pint open and she holds it open and you can see the 2 flavors. And then of course they say, please don't do this at home. But that's creativity. And creativity can be brought to the kind of synopsis of news you're doing. Hey, I can take huge amounts of information like what is ISIS and make it 3 minutes and deliver it to your phone. And marketers can involve real people in making video messages that resonate.
Well, I would think that there's more pressure than ever on advertisers. I actually wanted to go into advertising when I was younger, but during my job interview at Gray, I started crying when the woman told me to go to business school, and then she suggested I get a job closer to my parents' house. So that was a very short-lived advertising career, but I happen to love advertising.
I think we'll take your back, right?
I may be calling you at some point.
Lots of great people in this audience if you want to read you that interview.
But you know, I love the creativity. I love to watch ads, but it seems to me, you know, that more often than not, if I'm playing words with friends and then I, you know, put my word on, then I want to X out of it. I just don't want to waste the time. And I think we've been so programmed not to have ads online or on our phones that it's imperative that they be uber creative, uber eye-catching and fun, because there are some that I start watching, I'm like, wow, I want to see the rest of this. And on television, I still am like saying to my husband all the time, do you think that was a good ad? Why did you think? He thinks I'm so weird, because I'm more interested in the ads half the time than I am the programming. But how are you kind of working together with advertisers to make people not X out of ads and to make them more interesting and creative and relevant?
So we work with the Facebook Creative Shop and we work with amazing agencies. I think agencies all over more and more have really recognized. We launched our Atlas partnership, for example, with Omnicom today, one of the big agency holding companies, and we're excited to have their partnership. What's really also important is the format. So Facebook, in this transition from desktop to mobile, we get 1 in 7 minutes on the desktop. We get 1 in 5 minutes on mobile. So once we figured out how to build mobile products, that's working, and it actually gives us a competitive advantage. What people do more than they do anything else on Facebook is they look in their newsfeed. So, you know, you're scrolling through, and if you stop, the ad plays. If you click it, volume comes on, and if you go past it, you go past it. And that's pretty exciting because, as you said, people pick and choose. I can watch your 3-minute, you know, example, you know, synopsis of ISIS, or I can tune on something else. I can scroll past this in my newsfeed. And so that gives marketers a real opportunity, but also the necessity of making something that's great for consumers. And it has a couple parts. The first is creativity, and that's why we partner so closely with agencies. We have a creative shop to work with them and our client partners all over. The second is the technology. think about being able to shoot fry football overnight and get it out to, 100 million people. How could you do that in the old formats? You would never get that done. It's not possible to buy all that time. You can't reach as many people. And the next is relevance, that the nice thing about doing things on mobile is you get immediate feedback. And again, you don't get anyone's personal private information, but we can tell you X% of the people clicked right past your ad. Or hey, people are watching this because X% of the people watched your ad, and then you can make your ads more relevant. So while we're on video, I want to go back to something you were talking about, which is length. So I watched some of your recent interviews. I watched you interview the brothers of James Foley, and it was
the brother and sister.
Brother and sister, sorry,
Mike and
the siblings of James Foley, and that's amazing, right? Because obviously, that's a horribly painful thing to do, and that was, I think, 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
For them, and then you did, as you mentioned, Secretary Kerry, and that was longer. That was 30 minutes, and in some things, that's kind of counterintuitive because people think people need to be shorter. And you've done something which has taken advantage of the digital platform to have James Foley's siblings, to have Secretary Kerry on for longer pieces. How are you thinking about that? Because people can X that out too, right? Or they can choose to watch.
How do you get
people
think
to watch
the conventional wisdom is shorter is better online. And so what we're trying to do is, I think, give consumers and users various iterations of our content. So you're right. I mean, I interviewed John Kerry live at the State Department, I think in mid-June, and that was just a long interview. But then what we've done is cut them up and put them in sort of more digestible, snackable portions. I mean, it's gratifying that someone like Mike Foley kind of reached out to us and wanted to do the interview with me, perhaps because I'm a credible person who's had a lot of experience doing interviews, and especially sensitive interviews. And
interviews that call for empathy.
And so it was very gratifying that he didn't, he came to us along with his sister Katie to talk about some pretty important issues, obviously incredibly painful things about his brother and what happened to him, but also about the policy of the U.S. not negotiating with terrorists. And he used it as a platform, and it obviously made a lot of news, as did John Kerry's interview. It ended up on the front page of the New York Times, as did the interview I did with Eric Holder. Because, now good interviews, good content just reverberates all over the place. But we're trying to really experiment. Some people, I think, do want to possibly sit down and have a deeper dive. In other cases, with Joe Torre, for example, that I did as a live stream last week, we divided it up and we took a piece of Joe Torre talking about Derek Jeter's game. We took it about the NFL. So we try to give people options and present things in a whole myriad of ways. And I think a lot of this is really, the jury's out. We're still experimenting. What do people like? What do they want? And we want to give people a choice. I'm hoping that digital content doesn't make everybody just want things in 30 seconds or less.
But give it
that
choice.
As we evolve and as we get more acclimated to this way of consuming information, there will ultimately be a desire for longer pieces. But we're trying to kind of do it every way we can in the, and whether it's the News Digest, the Now I Get It newsletters, longer interviews, shorter interviews. We even did a GIF about Aereo when I interviewed Chet, whose last name I'm going to botch, so I'm not going to say it, who started Aereo. We did a GIF basically explaining the principles of Aereo. And so here's a whole panoply of ways that we're delivering content, and we're still, as I said, kind of figuring out what people like and what they don't like. But that's part of the exciting process, I think, of this whole new world.